Hello, welcome to another lesson. In this lesson, we will be learning Python control flow. We are going to use if, elif, and else statements for decision making. We're also going to master for loop and while loops for repetition, define functions to organize code, and see practical security examples. These control structures are essential for writing security tools. Let's dive in. Before we start, ensure that you have your VS Code opened and you have your Python script folder opened inside VS Code as well. You can see this is my own VS Code and this is my Python script folder. If you don't know how we got here, you can check my previous videos to see when we created the folder and to see how we got the files that are currently in the folder. Now, starting the Python control flow lesson, the first thing we want to do is to create a file by typing touch. We can name the file control underscore flow.py. You can see the file here, so you can open the file here. Let me maximize a bit. Now, the first thing we want to do is to add a shebang. After that, we're going to start with the if statement, which is used to execute code only when a condition is true. If statements are the fundamental to security scripts. In summary, we use them to make decisions. For instance, I can say port is equals to 22, then I can add that if port is equals to 22, and after that I want to print SSH port detected. Then I can save this, then come here and type Python, then I'll add the name of the file, which is control underscore flow.py, and I'll run it. And you can see that since we're already setting our ports to be 22 here, and we're asking that if port is equals to 22, don't forget that double equals to sign is used for comparison. So if port is equals to 22, then we are printing this. And since port is equals to 22, that's why we are getting this here. One thing you must take note of when you are writing if statement is the indentation here. You have to indent it. If you don't indent it properly, it can return an error to you. Now let's move to if-else statement. For if-else statement, we can include a comment here. We can say if statement. And here we can add if-else statement. So for this, we can define our port to be 80. And after that, we now want to ask if port is equals to 443. After that, I want to print HTTPS port, then I want to add encrypted. After that, I want to add else statement here. Then I'm printing not HTTPS unencrypted. We are getting an error. That means our double quote here, we didn't close it well. So the second one should be here and we can save it now. For this, we didn't add equals to sign. So we add that and we can come back here and run the code. This is for the first example we did, so you don't need to look at that. For the second one, we are saying that port is equals to 80 and if port is equals to 443, then you should print HTTPS. But if it is not 443, then you should print not HTTPS. And here you can see that since it is not 443, it is port 80, it has printed not HTTPS encrypted. Now let's consider if, else if, and else statements. I can add a comment here, if, elif, which also means else if, and else statements. So I'll quickly add the code here so that it doesn't take a lot of time. And this is the code. And here, the first thing we are doing is we are defining port and we are saving ports to be 21. So port is equals to 21 here. And here we are saying if port is equals to 21, print FTP often vulnerable. Else if port equals 22, then print this. Else if port equals 23, then print this. Else if port equals 80, then print this. Then else print this. So else is always the last statement. When you are no longer checking for another condition, then you end it with else. But if you are still checking for other conditions, you can be using elif or else if. So let's comment every other code we've written so that we can only see the result to the new code we just wrote. Let me clear my terminal and let me rerun this. Now you can see that we are getting FTP often vulnerable because our port is 21. The next thing we can do is to combine conditions. And this means that we can combine conditions with and, or, and not. In the previous videos, I've explained these logic functions or gates. If you've not seen the video, you can check that out. It's something very simple. You can grab it in this video as well. So let's comment this. Then let's come down and let's write our code here. So this is our code. Here we are saying port is equals to 80 and we are creating another variable which is open and we are setting that to be true. That is having a Boolean value. Now we are saying if port is equals to 80 and is open. That means that if port is equals to 80 and is open is true, then we are printing this. Here we are saying if port is equals to 443 or port is equals to 8443. Now the difference between the and the or is that and will always be true if both values are true. So if one is true and one is false, and will return false. But if both are true, then it's going to return true. In fact, if both are false, it's still going to return false. So and is only true if both values are true. But for or only needs one to be true. If one of those values is true, then or is true. So for or here, we are saying that if port is equals to 443 or port is equals to 8443, then you should print this. Now, to the last block, here we have if not is open. Not means the negative or the opposite of is open. So if I'm saying not Victor, I'm saying opposite of Victor. So if I'm saying not is open here, definitely I'm saying opposite of is open. And since is open is true here, definitely what I'm trying to say here is if false, because not is open is going to be false. So I'm not saying that if not is open, then we should print this, else we should print this. Now let's save this and let's run the code. Now you can see open HTTP port found, potential target, not an HTTP port, and port is open. So why are we getting this? If you look at the first if statement, we are having if port is equals to 80 and is open. That means both are true. Then we are going to get this. And that is why we are getting this in the terminal here. For the second one, neither of it is true because port is not equals to 80 and port is not equals to 8443. So what we are going to be getting is not an HTTPS port. And that is why we are getting that here. So for the last block here, we are saying if not is open, that is open is true. So if we are getting false, then we should print port is closed, else we should print port is open. And since is open is true, this is going to be printing port is open, and that is why we are seeing port is open here. To reiterate, the AND operator requires both conditions to be true, the OR operator requires at least one conditions to be true, and the NOT operator reverses the Boolean value. NOT is just looking for the opposite of the value. Now let's move to for loops. And this is where we are going to be iterating over sequences. For loops repeat code for each item in a sequence, and it is essential for scanning multiple targets. That's one of the beauty of for loops. To write that, we can first comment this out. Then we can add a comment here for our for loop. So you can say for loops, iterating over a list. Now let's create a list. So here we want to create an array of ports or a list of ports. Let's say we're having 21, 22, 23, 80, and 443. Then after that, we now want to loop through that sequence, that is loop through the entire ports list. So we can say if ports in ports, then we want to print f scanning ports, then we want to get the value of each of the ports. So we are going to be printing that for each of the ports. Now let's run this so that you can see what it looks like. Basically what is happening here is that this for loop is looping through each port list from here, and the variable port here takes each value in the port sequence, then run it, and that is why you are seeing 5 lines here, which means that we're having 1 line for each of the port number. So for loops are how you can scan multiple hosts, test multiple passwords, or process multiple files. Now, what if we want to write for loops with a range? We can comment these out. You might be wondering, what is a range? A range generates number sequences. Now let's write the code so that you can understand. We can add a comment here and say for loops with range. Then come here and say print. Then I can add \n, which means new line. Then I'm scanning ports 1 to 10. So I can now say for ports in range 1, 11. After that, I now want to print ports. Then I'll be picking the port numbers one after the other. Now I can also range with step. I can add that here. And here I can print, let me add a string here. So let's say common ports. And I now want to add another loop here. I can say for ports in range 20, 101, 10, and I want to print f, then port, then I want to get the port one after the other. So for the first code here, range 1, 11 here generates numbers from 1 through 10 because it's not going to add the last one there. So if you are saying range 1, 12, that would be from 1 through to 11. So the printer is going to be picking each of the number in the range, and it's not going to be adding the number to the port strings. So we're going to have ports with the port number. And for the second one here, this range starts at 20 and stops before 101. But the steps in between each of the numbers is going to be 10. So if we're starting from 20 to be 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So that is what that means. So the first number in a range with step is the starting number, and then the second one is the number where you want to stop. One here, and here you're going to be printing ports with the respective numbers as well. So you can come here, clear your screen, then try to run this again. And if you look at this, you can see that we first printed from 1 to 10, and that is for this. After that, we now printed from 20 to 100, and that is for this. The next thing we want to do is that we want to loop through dictionaries. That means we can loop through dictionary keys, values, or both. Now let's try that. What we can do is we can comment this out, then you can come down here and add this code. I'm going to add all of the codes in the description. So if you check the description, you're going to see the link to a file that contains all the codes that I've run in this demo. So here is the starting point, looping through dictionaries. Here we are creating a dictionary and we are naming that dictionary host info. Inside the dictionary, we are having 3 items. The first one is IP and the value for IP is this. The second one is host name and the value for host name is metasploitable. The third one is OS and this is the value. Now we want to loop through keys. So loop through keys, this is how we do it. We say for key in host info, that is we are getting the keys inside the host info here. And here we are printing each of the key that we are getting. Also to loop through key value pairs, what we do here is we say for key, value, that is we are getting both the key and the value from the dictionary. So we are saying for key, values in host info dot items. So we are picking them per items, right? Here we are now printing this. So what we are printing here is we are printing the key and the respective values. So we can save this, clear your terminal, and rerun this. Now you can see for the first one here, we are picking IP is equals to this, host name is equals to this, Linux is equals to this. And for this one, we are printing IP is equals to this as well, host name is equals to this, OS is equals to this. That means we can print the key with the value for the key by looping through the dictionary with just the key. So we can still get that from here. Also, you can loop with both the key and the value. And you can see that here. And after the looping here, we are printing both the keys and the values here. So this means that looping through the dictionary directly gives you keys and you can use the key to access values. Also, the item methods here gives you both key and value as a tuple, which you can later unpack into variables. And that was what we did here. In case you're not familiar with tuple yet, you don't need to bother yourself. It's something you can learn as time goes on. But just have it in mind that that is what the code is doing there. The next thing we want to try is the while loop. Let's comment this. And while loop is a loop that repeats until condition changes, which means that it continues to run until a condition becomes false. It is useful for retries and continuous monitoring in security. So after we've commented that, we can come here and put the code for while loop here. Here we are defining our attempts to be 0 and max attempts we are setting that to be 3. So we are now saying while attempt is less than max attempts, which means that while 0 is less than 3, then we should keep printing this, and per line we are going to be adding 1 until we get to 3. You can see that here as well. It is going to be adding 1 to the initial value. Here we are printing maximum attempts. That is after it has gotten to 3 according to our while loop here. So we can save it and run it here to see what it looks like. Let me clear my screen first, then run the code. You can see connection attempts 1, 2, 3, and once it gets to 3, then we are having max attempts reached. So that's that for while loop. Another thing we can try in Python is break and continue. What break does is that it exits a loop immediately and continue skips to the next iteration. That's the difference between the two. So we can come here and add the code for our break and continue. The code is starting from here down to here. So we can save it and try to run it first. Now, if you look at the results here, you're going to see that it is doing what exactly we asked it to do. Because what we are doing from here is that we are saying that for ports in range 1 and 1001, then we want to be printing this. Now, the moment we get to port 80, because here we are saying if port is equals to 80 here, so the moment we get to port 80, we want to print this and then break it, right? So that means starting from 1 to 80, we are going to keep printing this. Then once it gets to 80, then it's going to print this and then it's going to break the loop. And if you come down here, you see that the moment it gets to 80, it stopped. You can see that here it stopped and then it's printed found HTTP on port 80, which is what is coming from here. Now to the continue block. Here we are getting the port from this list and we are saying if port is equals to 25, then continue. And what this does is that it's going to continually print this, that is going to continually print scanning ports with the port number. And the moment it gets to 25, it's going to skip that 25 and it's going to continue. So that is the difference between break and continue statements. Now let's put everything we've learned so far together by creating a practical example of a port checker function. And to do that, I can clear my screen here and create a new file. I can name this portchecker.py and I have the file here already. So I can write the code inside this and here is my code. As I said earlier, I'm going to add the code to a file, then add the link to the description below. So you should check the description below. You are going to see the link. So here we are defining a check ports function and we have two arguments that we need for that. We are using the target IP and we are using the ports to check. We are going to be printing scanning, then the target IP. So that means we are collecting the target IP dynamically. Here we are opening an empty list because we want to store something inside that list later. And here we are saying for ports in ports to check, then you should print this. And this is where we are simulating the port check. So if port is in this, then print vulnerable. And after that, you should now start appending the port number to the empty list that we created from here. And that is why we are using append here. Else, then just print here. So this is the block for the report results. So this is just like a banner as well. And here we are printing the total port scan and we are getting the length of ports to check from here. If vulnerable port is greater than 0, we want to print this, then return the vulnerable port. Else, we want to print this and return this. So this is where we are now calling the function that we have created. You can see common ports. This is the list of common ports we are going to be using, and this is for results. So here we are checking if length of result is greater than 0, then we are going to be printing this. So let's save this and let's run Python port checker. And now you can see the results here. Checking port 21 vulnerable, checking port 22 okay, checking port 23 vulnerable, checking port 80 okay, checking port 139 vulnerable, and it continues like that. So this is the results section. Here you can see the vulnerable ports found to be 21, 23, 139, and 445. And here you are seeing alert 4 vulnerable ports detected, and that is what we are doing here. So you can take time to look through the code again. You learn to write code by writing it, not by cramming it. So ensure that you are practicing it. This is not really a real-time scan. It is just a function we created ourselves, but this is how we use it in real-world scenarios as well. So once you access the code, just look through it, try to understand it very well before you use the code or run it. The last thing we want to do is to try what is called nested loops. And this is where you have a loop inside another loop. We use it for scanning multiple hosts and ports. To do that, we can create a file for it. We can name it nestedloop.py. And after we've done that, we can open the file here. And this is the code. Here we are creating a function and we are naming the function scan network with two different arguments, which are IP list and port list. So here I'm saying for IP inside the IP list, then print this. That is, you are printing scanning and you're getting each of the IP. Inside this for loop, I'm now having another for loop. And this one would run if this has run. If this condition is met, then this would run. So if I'm saying for IP inside IP underscore list, then print this. Then inside that again, I'm now saying for port inside port list, then print this. Here I'm having the list for my target, and here I'm having the list for my port. And this is where I'm calling the function, then I'm putting the target and the ports there. And if you can check here, you can see that we are getting the IP list and we are getting the port list. That is, anytime you are calling the function, you have to add the arguments there. And the arguments are the targets here and the ports here. So we've passed them inside this. We can clear our terminal here, then try to run the code. Python, then nested loop.py. Oh, we didn't save the file, so let's save the file and run that again. Now you can see the results here. So it is scanning each of the IP addresses, and as it is picking each of those IP addresses, it is scanning for the ports inside it. And that is the beauty of nested loops, because one loop will be running and inside that loop another one will be running. So once that one is done, it's going to pick another IP address and it's going to scan for the ports inside that IP address. Then it's going to move to the next one till it is done. So that's how nested loop works. The outer loop iterates through IPs, and for each IP, the inner loop iterates through the ports. And if you look at it very well, it creates a kind of matrix because each IP gets scanned for each port. So that's all for this lesson. But before we go, here is a challenge question. And the question is, when would you use a for loop versus a while loop? I repeat, when would you use a for loop versus a while loop? Thank you for seeing the video till the end. Please do not forget to like, share, and comment. I'll be expecting the answers to the challenge question in the comment section. Most importantly, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thank you and see you in the next lesson.